when it comes to writing content for a product that you're selling into developers, you said that you struggle both with agencies, outsourcing this to agencies, but also using AI for this because neither of those are embedded in the product itself. Maybe unpack that for us. I'm really curious to get your take there.
So I think there's a fundamental question of what would you outsource? It doesn't matter whether it's to an AI tool, to a contractor, to an agency, right? And I think, right, so for example, would you outsource product marketing role? No, you wouldn't, because that role is actually, it's mostly people work. It's making sure people are aligned on your product vision, on your messaging, on your positioning, on your personas, and then building context and disseminating that across the company. And it's really an alignment role. And there's a lot of people work in that, right? But would a lot of people contract out doing like running ads? Why is that? It's because there's a lot of technical work that's very similar across different companies. And so I think there's two questions here. The first is, what would you contract out? Anything that you wouldn't contract out, you should be very careful using AI for for a generative purpose, as opposed to summarization, editing, whatever, right? Like that's a little bit different. I think there's a second question, which is how, like, if you go down the path of using AI, right? How should you interact with ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, right? And this phrasing I'm about to say actually came from our CEO, Jeremiah, who's really into the AI space and very bullish on AI, rightfully so, and I agree with him. And the way that he phrased it made so much sense to me. And it was, think about an LLM as an intern. Would you give an intern at a company, right, like the 19-year-old who's like transitioning from a freshman to sophomore year in college, a really open-ended question where they're supposed to be creative about and have all this context that someone who's 20 years their senior has on the space? No, you wouldn't. And then furthermore, even if you give them a well-scoped task, would you give that output to your CEO without reviewing it first? No, of course you wouldn't. And so that, I think, is the approach that we need to take with AI right now, where it's not good enough to be like a staff marketer, right? But it is good enough to take some context and do some manipulation, right? And put it in different formats, and then have someone senior with the context edit it. And it's still a lot faster because it's a lot easier to do something when you're not starting from zero. It's like, you're not saying, paint me a painting. You're saying, here's a stencil, right? Fill it in, which is a very, very different, problem and a very different approach. Is a lot more feasible for where AI is today. There are two caveats. The first is, technology is changing so quickly, so I don't think that this is always how it's going to be. But I also think that there's right, and then there's the second caveat, which is, it all depends on how you set it up. So I personally really like Claude for setting up context, where you can add, right? So for example, like I can add a bunch of blog posts, or I can add a bunch of LinkedIn posts, right? Add our company positioning, and you start to build that context. And so you just get to that point a lot faster of building context, but we're still not quite fully there yet. So that's kind of my take.
Yeah, I had this insight and before, have you about Gen AI and its use? Have you both seen the movie Limitless by chance?
I have not.
Phil has. Okay, so
is that the one where they have like a watch for like how long they have left in their life?
No, so Limitless is about a pill that you take, and it increases your intelligence like several magnitudes.
Okay.
It's with Bradley Cooper. Anyway, in the movie, the core one of the key insights is the pill works better if you're already smart. Like it makes like an average person pretty good, but it makes a really smart person genius level. And I feel like that very much, in my opinion, applies to AI. I think that if you have a good strategy, if you're thinking about your customers the right way, if you have a good product offering, and you're approaching customer engagement and messaging the right way, it can get you really far. But for most people, they don't have that. So AI will just help them write their content a little faster or generate the reports a little bit faster. It doesn't take you where you want to go. Anyway, so I just wanted to share that.